Game week is finally here, and I'm going to tell you why we have all been wrong and why the Baylor Bears are going to win 9 football games this year. And I'll tell you about it on Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Bears fans, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Baylor, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. I'm your host, Cam Stuart of ESPN Central Texas and The Cam Show on Rogue Media Sports Network. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate GM, and it is game week. We are finally here. 0 is not a number. It is week 1 in college football. Although week 0 was pretty fun. We are now, as it stands, 5 days away from the Baylor Bears taking the field at McLean Stadium for the first time in 2024 as they take on the Tarleton State Texans of FCS. First-year postseason eligible in FCS. The Bears coming off a season where it looked like they should have been in FCS at 3-9, even with the benefit of 8 home games. So, spirits have not been high too much in the offseason, although the offseason spirits were higher than the ones during at least the latter half of the regular season last year. We're going to go over some scenarios in today's episode of why Baylor could exceed everyone's expectations. I'm talking 8 or 9 wins, and why things could quote unquote bottom out again, if there is such a thing, and the scenarios of a dream season or of a nightmare season for these Baylor Bears. We'll also look at Tarleton State, because they did play in week 0 and how they looked on national television for the first time. It is our first true game week team prep. We'll talk about a little bit of that coming up later in the show. But first, let's just bask in where we are right now. This moment in history that we are in. It is Monday as you're listening or watching this, most likely. You've got one more work week to get through with Baylor football at the end of the tunnel. We have been waiting for that for 8.5, almost 9 months now. We have been waiting for Baylor football to take the field again. No matter how bad it looks or how bad it looked last year, our life is better with having college football in it. Even if I'm going to regret saying that in 3 weeks and it's going to be another torturous season, I will say it now, full of hope, that this is what we need in our lives right now. The whole summer went by. It was another early exit in basketball. And so we had to watch the final 2 weekends of the NCAA tournament with no rooting interest. And then came the long spring and summer of our discontent. And for people who have to do daily college athletics podcasts, we yearn for the time when we are finally playing real football games, and we are at that point. What about a week 0 weekend? We already have a top 10 team going down. We have a newly christened Power 4 team, if you can call them that, surviving a huge scare. We even had Hawaii. That was fun, but it is time for week 1, and we're going to go over why this could be a great season for Baylor, because none of us are picking that. None of us are picking for it to be a truly great Baylor football season. Now, I am a history nut, and I don't even have to go back that far to really tap into this, but Baylor football is known for rising from the ashes. And I'm talking about 1 year knockdown, drag out, terrible. Oh, we're right back to where Baylor should be, where Baylor was before 15 years ago. To then the next year being like, Baylor is so back. This is the time where it's going to take off. How many times have we thought that the last few years? Right? 2017, they're 1-11. 2018, they go back to 6-6 and go back to a bowl game. And then the next year, they're in the Big 12 championship game. They're in the Sugar Bowl. And we're like, here we go. Matt Rule's Baylor Bears. We are back. We are building something again, and we are going to be this power again. Well, that fell flat on its face. And then in 2020, you bottom out again at 2-7. COVID, not a lot of people in the stands, not a lot of intrigue around the program. And then year 2, when nobody is counting on Dave Aranda's Baylor Bears to do anything, they have the best season in their history. We have seen it before. And I know that's just a theory that doesn't have anything to do with this team on the field right now, but we've seen it before. I don't think, looking back at 2021, hindsight's always 2020, weirdly. But in that 21 season, no one gave the Bears a shot to really do anything in that season. But it's not like they were being picked to go 3-9, which is some of the case of what's being picked this year. They were looked at as like a 6-6 team, maybe. And they went on to be a 12-2 team. So that's just something to keep in mind. But in terms of tangible things that could happen on the football field, I think there's a really slight chance, but there is a chance that Baylor goes on to win 8 or 9 games. It starts with this offense. Okay? It shouldn't, but it does. This is where all the excitement's coming from. The new offense. Okay? Jake Spavital's Art Briles style offense, and he's got the ammunition to go with it. Guys like Daquan Finn, guys like Ashton Hawkins, guys like the running back stable you already had, with Dawson Pendergrass and Richard Reese and Dominic Richardson. There we go. And Bryson Washington. And wide receivers you already had. Guys like Monterey Baldwin. That could be something that propels this team past where it probably should be. If the offense is ahead of schedule, that is a tough thing for opposing defenses to keep up with. And quite frankly, it's not an offensive style we see a lot of in the Big 12 anymore. The national pundits will try and tell you that it's like 2016 with the Big 12 and that, it's just classic Big 12 game, up and down, no punts, no defense, 70-63. But those of us who've been watching it know that has not been the Big 12 for years now. And the closest that we've had to that kind of offense in the past few years was, of course, Jeff Lebby at Oklahoma. And so you're not going up against a lot of those offenses anymore, which is just like putting it back in the context of when Art Briles installed this offense for Baylor and really started to take shape in 2011. 2010, they go to a bowl game, and there's a little bit there. But 2011 is when that really starts to take off. And 2013 and 14, you're talking about the best offense in the country. That contextually, it's pretty similar. The league was a smash mouth league with some good passers in there. Obviously, Tech was airing it out a bit, but other than them, no one was doing that mega spread offense. So maybe, just maybe, the teams aren't ready for that in this conference, and Baylor's offense can take them by surprise and maybe win some games that they shouldn't win. Speaking of that, there's a schedule component to this that I'm going to get into about why Baylor can be better than everyone thinks and what the schedule has to do with it. That's coming up after this. Because today's episode is brought to you by Ultimate College Football Head Coach, okay? I want to take a moment, give you a heads up, brand new mobile game that's out there. I think you guys are going to love it. I love it. It is Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Because in this game, in the simulation, you get to step into the shoes of Dave Aranda and lead your Baylor Bears to glory. Could you imagine? It's all on you. The people like me are going to be critiquing your every move, from recruiting players, hiring coaching staff, overseeing the training camps, scholarships, all of that. You control every crucial detail of your program. It's in your hands. So it's up to you to be able to handle that pressure. And here's what I love about it. Because at the end of the day, we all love the offense. You're responsible for calling the plays, okay? And your strategy will not only determine the success of this season, but is going to shape the future, your program. Okay, Ultimate College Football Head Coach is completely free. It has no ads, and it's 100% playable offline. So you can play on the go as you want and when you want to. And of course, we're hooking you guys up. We get a special offer for you, the fans. Use the promo code Locked On CFB, which stands for college football, in all caps inside the game store to receive a free boost to your program. Make sure you take advantage of this perk, as it's going to get your team off to a strong start. So just download the game, visit ultimate-cfb.com ultimate-cfb.com. Look it up on all the app stores. Ultimate College Football Head Coach. Begin your coaching legacy today. I'm staying positive here. I'm continuing on the positive path, okay? Before I get a little pessimistic in a minute here. But looking at the schedule, I've said this all offseason long. And look, I understand that Baylor is firmly in this position, but so much of the Big 12 is a question mark. There is not 4 teams in this conference that I can say absolutely those guys are going to be ranked at the end of the season. And therefore, I cannot say that they will have 4 ranked teams. And those are 2 different things. So that leaves open a ton of question marks. And I get that Baylor is in there too. But I looked down their schedule, and I said this last night. I said, okay, Cam, if I'm looking at the schedule here, I do talk to myself like that. What are the games they cannot win? As we look at it on August 26th, what are the games you are very confident that Baylor football cannot win? Like nearly impossible. And I looked at it and I thought, week 2, Utah. I think that's a very tough ask, even though it's an afternoon game and a night game. Utah does not lose at home. Utah is a much better team, and it's Baylor's first road test. I don't think they're going to win that. Okay. Oklahoma State at home. Doubt it. They are at home, but I doubt it. I think Oklahoma State is as good as what we were talking about on the show on Friday. And then at West Virginia. I think West Virginia is better than people are giving them credit for, and Baylor has literally never won in Morgantown. So I am canceling that off the win column. Okay, it's not going to happen. Which does leave some interesting ones. That leaves a ranked Kansas team at home, leaving the door open for a win there. At Tech, never easy. They made it look easy last time, but it is not easy, okay? At Iowa State, a team that I have picked to go to the conference championship game. Yes, I'm even leaving the door open for that one. And TCU, who they love not beating. I am leaving the door open for that one too. So, in my mega ultra nirvana optimism, I could see them winning 9 games. I looked up and down this, and, Iowa State always loses a game or 2 that they're not supposed to lose every year. And even though I think they have great fans, they will lose games at home. Tech is the same thing. Tech is the same reasoning, and we don't know the health of their quarterback and how balanced that offense can be. Taj Brooks is great. He is a deserved All-American. He is one of the best skill players in the entire country. But if you don't have balance and Baron Morton's shoulder is not healthy and they run through quarterbacks like they do most years in terms of the injury bug, that might not be a great football team. That might be another 6-6 kind of football team. That would not shock me in the slightest. TCU, tons of questions there, man. I mean, this is a team that was not very good last year. Of course, they did beat Baylor, being 5-7. Josh Hoover, I don't know. I don't know, man. There's a lot of young guys who need to step up at TCU that you just, I don't know. I don't know how much you count on that. Houston on the road, I think should be a win. Not many on the schedule, I think, should be a win. BYU at home probably should be. Colorado, definitely winnable. Definitely winnable, man. It's 4-8 Colorado. Air Force, hopefully. Hopefully. So then when I look at that, that's 9-3. And what needs to happen for that is this offense needs to hit the ground running, because I do worry that it might take some time to take shape. But if DeQuan Finn has the accuracy numbers that he put up 2 years ago versus even last year, because his numbers last year, throwing wise, were pretty good. Not great. They were a team that threw the ball a lot less last year than they did 2 years ago at Toledo. So you would need DeQuan Finn to be an accurate passer. You would need all your wide receiver additions, I think, to hit. Ashton Hawkins being on the Bolitnikoff award watch list for however many people are on that. Monterey Baldwin stepping into a leadership role. Jamal Bell, a guy who came in the transfer portal. You would need him to be firing on all cylinders, be a Drew Estrada type. You would need Hal Presley to be healthy. You need Katron Jackson to be up to get, I don't know, less attention on the defensive side. So all those things need to go right. And you would need this defense to mature into their roles. You don't have a ton of experience. You have a lot of guys who played last year. We don't have a ton of experience on the defensive side of the ball. Matt Jones being the obvious, Matt Jones and Garmin Randolph being the obvious caveats to that, exceptions to that, I should say. Those guys would need to step up big time. But if that is the case, and they can be an opportunistic defense, and the offense just, hits our wildest expectations for them in year one, then yes, this team could be a couple games better than bowl eligibility. Could it also go way wrong? Yes, it can. Yes, it can. There's a fantasy world where they go 9-3. There is also a world where they go 3-9 again. That's not impossible. If your quarterback gets hurt and Sawyer Robertson is not ready, or this offense just doesn't take off the way it's supposed to be, and maybe you are rotating some quarterbacks in there, if the offensive line has not improved from last year, it might not matter who you have back there. You're going to really struggle to score points and establish the kind of run offense that you need to put up the points that you're looking to put up. That's very possible. And again, with this defense, you had a lot of guys who played last year, but that doesn't mean they're grizzled veterans. I'm looking at that defensive backfield with Caden Jenkins and Carl Williams and DJ Coleman and those kinds of guys. They played a lot last year, but that doesn't mean they're seniors. That was this true benefit of the last two really good Baylor teams we saw, 2019 and 2021. Both had veteran defenses with veteran guys in the middle of that defense, specifically at the linebacker position. Of course, at 19, you're looking at Clay Johnston most of that year. Terrell Bernard fills in admirably. Then you have Bernard in 2021. You've got Dylan Doyle in there as well at the mic. So all of those teams had a ton of experience on the defensive side. Thankfully, in this scenario, Baylor does have their most experienced player at the linebacker position, but it would take a lot of stepping up and a lot of maturing for this to be a defense that's near as good as 2019 or 2021. And you might not even see that in the numbers if the offense is going the way it should. But yes, there absolutely is a scenario where things just don't click right away. You have a whole new coaching staff on here. You have some new opponents on the schedule. You have a lot of guys who have not played together on the offensive line. You're searching for a lot out of your defensive line. The skill position guys have only had camp. They have not had games last year to play with your quarterback. And there's been a lot made of this young defensive backfield that there could be some complacency there. So yeah, there's absolutely a world where it's bottoming out again at 3-9. I couldn't see any worse than that. But you've also got to remember Baylor's 3 wins on the schedule last year. None of those teams are on their schedule this year. So if they had the same record, you know what I mean? Like they don't have Cincinnati on the schedule. It was probably just as bad as they were last year. They don't have UCF on the schedule. They don't have Long Island on the schedule. In fact, you went from a team that had just moved up to FCS to another team that's just moved up to FCS, who's ranked in the top 25 in Tarleton, who's coming off a win in week 0. And we're going to talk about what we saw from the Tarleton Texans and why they could give Baylor a bit of a scare on Saturday. That's coming up. But first, I got to tell you about our new sponsors and our friends at 5 Hour Energy. Okay, we all know what is upon us with football season. Okay, there is a lot to keep up with. You want to stay alert and watch all your favorite games on Saturday after you've stayed up for high school football on Friday and before you're getting ready for your NFL on Sunday. So if you want to stay up, late for all these games, see the intense overtimes, the West Coast, Hawaii, you want all that 5-hour energy is the way to do it. Just take a 5-hour energy shot in the morning and you can get going all day with zero sugar. It's convenient. It's portable size. It is the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. You're up early setting up that tailgate. 5-hour energy has got you. And the 5-hour energy website has flavors galore. They got watermelon, tropical burst, grape, berry, and so many more. There's a flavor for everyone. Why don't you just try them all? Try them all. On the site, you even have the option to build your own 12-pack or your own 24-pack. You choose the flavors, and it's delivered right to your door. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com, that is the number 5hourenergy.com, and get some 5-hour energy products today. You can use my promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. And that code, once again, is LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your first order. So go to 5hourenergy.com today. Tarleton, the Tarleton Texans, now of Division I, now of veterans of nationally televised games. Yeah, it was a big, big deal out there in Stephenville on Saturday. First nationally televised game. They unveiled this whole statue. Their stadium renovations are done. I've got to call games in that stadium. It's pretty darn nice, especially for a place like Stephenville. It's pretty nice. And the Texans with a gut check win over the program I heard called a storied football program on the broadcast. That would be the McNeese State Cowboys. But it wasn't pretty. 26-23 is the final. They were up 26-7 at the half. And they hung on big time. In fact, McNeese missed a game-tying field goal as time expired. It wasn't always pretty for Tarleton, but they did get it done, and they are ranked in the top 25 in the FCS. That was something I did not know about until watching the game, and I saw the little number 21 next to their name. I knew they had a good year last year for their first year in Division I, but I was surprised to see the hype that they're getting for this year and the fact they get an All-American on the outside at receiver. We're going to talk about him a little bit more this week. But this Tarleton team is good at the FCS level. They did barely hang on, but that's because Victor Gabalis, their quarterback, did get hurt, did not play the second half. They had my man Pete in there. Something Pete. And that was tough sledding. Oh, boy. That offense is a Victor Gabalis offense because when they had the backup quarterback in there, they could not move the ball whatsoever. None. They did have a good day on the ground. Kevon Britton, their running back. Kayvon? I think it's Kayvon. Yeah. 160 plus yards on 25 carries, average 6.6 a carry, man. They're running it right down their throat, and turnover battles usually win the games. Tarleton got 4 turnovers. McNeese did not force any. And look, I know some of you watched the game on Saturday. McNeese is really not a good football team. Like, really not at all. They won 2 games last year. One of them was a forfeit. They wanted to lose that game clearly. Some of the coaching decisions in the fourth quarter as they were making their comeback and at the end of the game especially were mind-numbingly stupid. And some of their turnovers were also mind-numbingly stupid. They were just throwing the ball all over the place. That was Tarleton's game to lose, and they almost lost. So I also think they're probably riding high. You know, this was very hyped up. They moved their game to week 0 just so they could be on TV. It was their first time on national TV. It was a big, big deal for the school. So I think they're probably, I mean, it could go one of 2 ways. This is all sports cliche here, but they could be riding high and use that confidence and house money to play really well at Baylor. Or what I'm probably thinking is they were really, really focused and honed in on that one game and they won it. They're going to take their lumps against a Power 5 team in FBS, and then they will go about probably having a pretty good season. But if they don't have Gabalis, they don't have anywhere near a shot. They don't. And even if they have Gabalis, there was still there was work to be done with that Tarleton team. They looked like a team that was playing in week 0. They looked like a team that was new to Division 1, but they did not look like a team that was ranked in the top 25 in the FCS. We are hopefully having an expert on this week. I'm making that happen right now as we speak, to talk a little bit more about this Tarleton team, what their identity is like, what their attitude might be coming into this game, and what we don't know about them. Because again, I was surprised to see top 25. So there's clearly a story there that we don't know about these Tarleton Texans, but it was not great FCS football on Saturday for a division that has gotten much, much better the last few years. FCS. I mean, we even saw Montana State knock out Bronco Mendenhall's New Mexico Lobos. So it's still pretty good, but it was not a good advert for the FCS. McNeese and Tarleton, not great football, especially in the second half of that game. And Tarleton really almost blew it. We went over the dream scenario. We went over the nightmare scenario. I guess I should just tell you, since we're heading into the season right now on August 26th, my pick is 7-6. I think they go 6-6 and win the bowl game, if you could do the math there. I am thinking positively about this Baylor team. They have won me over to a certain extent. I just don't. It's tough for me to look at this roster and say that's going to win 7 or 8 games. So I got them at 6 in the regular season and winning the bowl game, because why not? Bowl game vibes are great. And their offense shows enough promise that it's something to build on. Their defense forced enough turnovers that everyone stays in place. And we run the whole thing back in 2025. Let me know how you feel about that, because I think there are some of you listening that are retching hearing that prediction. If you are, let me know down in the comments below. If you think, Cam, you're wrong, they're going to be even better, everyone's going to stay and it's going to be great, drop that down in the comments below too. And let me know what your biggest questions are going into this first week of the season. I posted this on Twitter yesterday, so I'm sure some of you have already seen that and reacted to it. But I want to know the questions that you have going into this game week, because this is our last feeling of innocence before we actually see this Baylor football team hit the field. Be sure to like and subscribe, leave the comment, hit the notification bell to see when we're dropping episodes every day on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much for making it your first listen today and every day. We will see you tomorrow. We'll hear from Dave Aranda before then, so we'll probably hear a lot of that in the show on your favorite program, Locked On Baylor.